Hello, everyone, and welcome to another online event here at the University of California, Merced. We are so excited that you could join us this evening to talk about SSHA Academic Advising. SSHA stands for Social Sciences, Humanities, and Arts. And once again, we are speaking about advising and supporting your educational journey. Part of this presentation will include majors and minors, degree requirements, as well as advising services. Thank you so much for joining us. And at this time, I will hand things over to my colleague, Carolyn.
My name is Carolyn Bronco, and I am the Academic Advisor and Transfer Coordinator for the School of Social Sciences, Humanities, and Arts. And so essentially, if you are part of our school, you will be advised by me. So Amandeep, can you please move forward to the next slide, please? Thank you. Part of the presentation includes some learning outcomes, the introduction to the School of Natural Sciences, who we are, and who falls under our advising unit, our majors and minors, degree requirements, what are some of our advising services, and again, just leaving any time for questions towards the end of the presentation. Please proceed. Thank you. So as mentioned earlier, my name is Carolyn Barranco, and I'm the Transfer Academic Advisor. A little bit about me. I grew up in Los Angeles, California. I'm a first-generation student, like a lot of our students here at UC Merced are. But at the same time, I also completed my undergraduate degree here at UC Merced. I completed my Bachelor's of Arts in Psychology, and I minored in Spanish. And a couple years later down the road, I went ahead and proceeded on to pursuing my master's at Fresno State in student affairs and college counseling. I do enjoy Merced. It's a very small school, so it allows you the time and the ability to connect with a lot of staff and faculty. And so I only wish that students take advantage of those opportunities that they might not always have at bigger campuses. But essentially, Merced has provided me the opportunity of a lot of firsts. And so I only hope that that's also the same way for you all. And then go ahead on to the next slide. Thank you. In addition to myself, we also have a group of 4 other academic advisors who are listed within the PowerPoint presentation. We have Brenda Maldonado Rosas, Amandeep Singh, who is the other academic advisor who's joining me here tonight, Diana Hernandez Julian, and Lauren Brackett. Within the PowerPoint presentation, you're going to be able to see the majors that they oversee. Nonetheless, these academic advisors meet with continuing students. So essentially, again, if you are a transfer student, I will be meeting with you. But at the same time, it kind of gives you a little overview of who also makes up part of our advising staff unit. And then go ahead. Thank you. Jumping into our SSHA program, majors and minors, the next slide is going to kind of give you an outline of our majors and our minors. As mentioned, there are a couple of majors that you could select from, and there's also a couple of minors that you could go into if you see something that stands out to you. If you have any questions about what these minors entail, what those requirements are, essentially that's where advising comes in, right? And so at any point, that any questions arise related to what are these requirements that I need to complete to pursue this major, to pursue this minor, feel free to come back to our advising unit session or meet with me, right, to essentially discuss a little bit more in depth about what these majors and minors entail. Then you could go ahead and move forward, Amandeep. Thank you. So sometimes a lot of our students are intrigued to quickly get a little bit more familiar with what it is to add a minor, or what it is to change a major. There are specific policies that fall into place prior to even beginning that process of changing a major or adding a minor. And so that policy is essentially listed within the slide. Students must be in good academic standing, which means that they have to have a 2.0 or higher GPA. Transfer students specifically who wish to change their major within our school must meet the major admission criteria within the time that they're wishing to change their major. So what does that necessarily mean is that essentially prior to changing the major, we need to make sure that you are meeting those requirements pertaining to the major you're wanting to get into before even proceeding forward with moving forward with that paperwork. If you are thinking of changing your major, this is where having that conversation with me comes into place, just because we want to make sure that essentially you're falling following the track that you need to in order to change successfully. To change your major, you're going to have to submit a general petition form, and it has to be approved by our school dean. So just FYI on that note, it is a little bit of a process that you're going to have to follow through in order to have that major be submitted and hopefully be approved. Students are permitted to add minors beginning their second semester. So once you complete your first full term at UC Merced and you're intending to maybe add a minor following the second semester, then you could go ahead and submit that minor change form as well. The process for that basically allows for students to submit a web form, checking off that minor that they're wishing to add, and then waiting for the approval to hopefully be allowed to add that minor and have it appear within your academic record. Again, in order to change a minor, there is a web form that's going to be filled out. Those web forms are found within a separate web page that's different from our SHA academic advising website. But again, that's where that communication with your advisor comes in, and how to navigate the different websites that are present within our UC Merced to make sure that you are going in and filling out the correct paperwork. And then moving on a little bit into what are the degree requirements. Once you are a full student here at UC Merced, or most of you should be familiar with My Degree Path. My Degree Path should become your best friend. My Degree Path basically allows you to fully understand what are your degree requirements, what is it that you've completed, what is it that you still need to complete. So make sure that you please are familiar with how to use it. And essentially moving on to the next slide, it's going to show a little bit about how that looks like for all of you. And then you could go ahead and move forward, Amandeep. Thank you. How do I go into My Degree Path? You are going to run a My Degree Path audit, but essentially before getting there, you're going to go to Connect at UC Merced. Within there, you're going to see essentially what you see on the screen, a picture with a welcome and then following students. Within that student tab, you're going to go ahead and click it, and it's going to then allow you to log into what's called My Merced. And you should be able to see a portal following all your student information. From there, once you log in with your UC Merced credentials, you should be able to see a layout of what options you have as a student to look into, which will be presented per the slide that Amandeep is showing. So it should look very familiar to what you see right now. And in terms of running My Degree Path, you're going to see under for continuing students, a My Degree Path option. So you're going to want to go ahead and click it. And then once you click that option, you're going to then bounce to My Degree Path. And so once you're in there, like the presentation shows, you should be able to see your first name, last name. So right now we have the example of Bobcat Rufus as our student, and then following through with the title, meaning what major you're intending to pursue, the catalog year in which you're admitted to, and then your degree program, right? So for Rufus, we have him as a public health student, catalog year fall 2022, because that's when he's starting with us. And then again, the acronym for his degree program, which is public health. How you run a degree path is you're going to then click on Run Declared Program, right? So that little long blue square button at the bottom, that's where you're going to want to click as a student to be able to see your full My Degree Path. And an example of that is presented in the next slide. So once you click that little blue button that we just mentioned, right, it's going to run your audit. The audit is your official student record, which includes all of your completed and in progress courses alongside any outstanding degree requirements that you still need to complete. It is a little bit overwhelming to look at, so don't panic if at first you look at it and you don't understand it. That's what I'm here for. I'm here to help you understand it, and I'm here to help you essentially navigate it in a way that's easier for you all. But generally speaking, you should be able to see your first name and last name located at the top of the audit alongside your major. And then of course, your advisor is going to be listed at the bottom where you see that big red circle. So you just want to double verify that my name is listed there, because essentially if you're a transfer student, you will be advised by me. And so the images itself essentially outline how it looks like, right? And so quick way note to see what am I missing is that if there's a little red X, similar to what you see on the images, that's probably an area you still need to work on, right? Whereas if you see like any little green check marks, those are areas that you have completed, so you don't necessarily have to worry about. But essentially, like I mentioned, my degree path is going to be the first go-to when reviewing your official record as a student. You could just move forward, Amandeep. Thank you. So how do I read it, right? And so this goes a little bit more in depth into seeing a little bit more than just like the red X's and the green check marks. Essentially, as a transfer student, you're going to see a lot of the TIPs or TAs, right? Because a lot of that is essentially transfer coursework. But for example, we have the example of psychology, right? So essentially for this student, so for Rufus a Bobcat, right? He completed a Psych 1 equivalent course at Merced College. You're going to see the institution, the community college listed to the right, following the T, which stands for transfer, and then the A, which is the final grade that the student received at their institution. Now, if you look at Psych 15, for example, right, you're going to see a TIP. That essentially means that the student is receiving credit for Psych 15, but the course is currently in progress, okay? And so IP generally means in progress. Merced Psych 101B is the course name at the community college, and then Psych 15 is what it's articulated to at UC Merced. Okay, and then you have the following example, which is a Psych T25, which is Intro to Abnormal Psychology, which again stands as a TIP. Because there's a T25 in front of that spring psych course, that generally means that you are receiving credit for that course, but that it's not necessarily articulated to anything, any course at UC Merced. Okay, so again, these are just examples of generally how different courses could be outlined within my degree path, and it's going to be different for every student. So just keep that in mind. If a student has not completed the required prerequisite, they could either take the prerequisite at UC Merced, or they could submit a requisite override electronic form to request permission from the instructor. That doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be approved automatically, because it's at the discretion of the instructor to either approve or deny those requests. But nonetheless, when you're signing up for courses, you should be able to see what those prerequisites are for specific courses. And if there's any confusion after that, then you could just always follow up with your advisor to gain some clarification. Next slide. Thank you. So in addition to understanding your audit and my degree path, right, there's also a way in which you could create a plan to have you better understand how many semesters you have left here at UC Merced to complete your major, right? And so through that, it's going to be through the same tool, which is my degree path, with the exception that instead of audits, you're going to then run a plan, which is that other circle that you see next to audits. Once you're in plan, you're going to click on create new plan and select your catalog year. All of you should, for the most part, choose fall 2022 because that's your starting catalog year. Once you select the term or the catalog year, sorry, you're going to go ahead and proceed by selecting your major. Okay, so if you're a SHA student, your major should fall within one of the ones that we have under SHA. When creating your plan, you're going to then be able to drag courses and drop courses to better plan for understanding what areas that you still need to complete for your major or upper division GE requirements. The next slide is going, thank you, Amandeep, is going to show essentially how that looks like, right? And so for example, for this student, they're majoring in economics. Their effective catalog year is fall 2022. This student needs to complete Math 11, right? So what's going to happen is that the student's going to drag Math 11 onto spring 2023 and then pop it in there. And that's a way that they're going to plan that they're going to take Math 11 in spring of 2023. Okay, so it's a lot of dragging and dropping, but essentially you're going to then plan to then formulate an audit that's going to allow you to see how many semesters you have left to complete A, B, and C requirements, right? If you've already completed those requirements, you're going to have that little green check mark, just like writing it, for example, and Spark has it in this example specifically, right? If it doesn't have that little green check mark, then go ahead and proceed in a way that you're going to plan for that course as if you haven't taken it still. Next slide. Thank you. Now, what is the transfer student degree requirements? For one, it's going to look different for every student depending on their major, right? But generally speaking, in terms of your UC Merced requirements, you have what's your writing 1 requirement, your writing 10, and your American history and institution requirement. Most transfer students come in with this already completed, right? So we don't tend to see a lot of this area missing. In terms of your general education requirements, for the most part, traditionally, we have what's a Spark course. For transfer students, this is waived. You have your written communication, which is generally, for the most part, completed alongside your quantitative reasoning requirement and your language. So those 3 areas are generally, most of the time, already satisfied by the transfer students, so they don't necessarily have to work backwards to complete these areas. However, when it comes to your crossroads, writing in the discipline, culminating experience, these 3 specifically, these are considered upper division GE requirements. A lot of these courses or a lot of these requirements you're going to complete within your time at UC Merced. So don't panic if you see that these areas are still missing. That's completely normal. Chances are they're going to be missing because these areas are going to be areas that you're going to complete throughout your time at UC Merced, with a lot of those upper division courses that you're going to be taking either way. You have your approaches to knowledge and your intellectual experience badges, which again, some of these approaches to knowledge areas are going to be already completed with some of the lower division coursework that you took at your community college, alongside the badges too. But in terms of the badges, these areas tend to be satisfied with a lot of those upper division courses you're going to be taking anyway, right? So there's a lot of sharing involved. And then in terms of major requirements, it varies for every major, right? So a psychology student is going to have different requirements to complete versus a student who's majoring in economics or a student who's majoring in cognitive science. So that's going to vary. But if you have any questions, that's my degree path is going to be your best friend, but you could always obviously come to me for further clarification regarding that information. Next slide, Amandeep. Thank you. In terms of the policy associated with minimum grades and what grades you need to do to make sure you stay in good academic standing, right, is that you want to at least achieve a C- or better in all of your courses, right? This includes any GE, general education courses, any major courses, any minor courses. C- or higher is what we need to do. Courses must be repeated if minimum grade is not earned, especially if that course is applying to a major or a minor requirement. You do have the ability to repeat the course, right? If we are not able to receive a C- or higher. Of course, you just have to follow through with the appropriate paperwork in order to re-add that course, because adding it alone without first getting approval is not going to be possible. Okay. And then again, kind of switching back to remembering good academic standing is that we need a 2.0 GPA in all major and minor coursework. Next slide. Thank you. Generally speaking, in order to be a full-time student, you want to be at least enrolled in 12 units, right? Which is essentially every course here at UC Merced is a 4-unit course. So if you take 3 courses, that's equivalent to 12 units, right? Nonetheless, anywhere from 12 units to 16 units is what we advise students to enroll in order to maintain progress towards degree, right? So that means completing, if you want to complete at least 24 units in each academic year, that's what we suggest in order to make sure that you are staying on track to complete your degree within a timely manner, okay? For SHA specifically, students have to complete a total of 60 upper division units semester units, which again, if you want to remember it in the way, each course you take at UC Merced is going to be 4 unit courses, right? So when it comes to 60 semester units, you're talking anywhere from 15 courses, which I know sounds like a lot, but in the bigger spectrum of things, you're going to be completing these courses nonetheless for a lot of those major requirements that you need in those upper division GEs. In total, you need 120 units. Half of those 120 are the 60 units, right? And some students already come in with some of those credits aiming towards the 120. So just keep in mind that, again, it could vary for every student. In terms of the normal progress policy, students have 4.5 years to complete their degree requirements. Yes, this includes transfer students as well, which is essentially 9 semesters. Anything beyond 9 semesters will require a petition to make sure to essentially request permission to extend your stay. Okay, but keep in mind that generally speaking, you have 4.5 years to complete all of your degree requirements. In terms of our academic advising services, can you move forward to our next slide, Amandeep? Thank you. We do have a general website, right? That's essentially list every school that UC Merced has. You as a student and you being in SHA, your go-to would be the School of Social Sciences, Humanities, and Arts, right? So that's essentially where you could begin to get a little bit more information about the services we offer and what our school has to offer to you all. Next slide. Thank you. In addition to our website, we also have SHA student staff. We have peer navigators that support students in the following ways in the terms of answering very general questions. But generally also speaking, they are the ones who greet you when coming and visiting an advisor, right? Or seeing another peer navigator student. So they're there to greet you, but also to answer any general questions that you may have in regards to degree requirements, or in regards to specific forms that you might sometimes need in order to submit a specific request. So just know that they are there to help you in very general ways, but anything more specific and more nitty gritty, that's where your academic advisor would come in. They are also available to meet with students through walk-in hours as well, right? Depending on the time of the semester. So just keep that in mind. Next slide. Thank you. So how do I go about getting assistance, right? So in order for me to help you, you also have to help me, right? And so with that, we want to make sure that you're able to utilize and be familiarized with the resources that you have around you, which includes, again, my degree path, which is essentially what we kind of covered earlier today, the SHA academic website, which again, I gave you all a brief introduction a couple slides back. And a course schedule if you are planning courses ahead of time prior to meeting with me. Following that is the step 2 process, which is to personalize and plan, right? So prepare your course options. So if you need information on how to plan for courses, come to me with at least plan A and plan B, just so that we have something to work with in order for me to better advise you on what your options are as a student. If you have any specific concerns, that is essentially your time to also ask, right? So make sure you identify what those concerns are in order for me to be better able to support you in the best way possible to address those questions. And then make decisions about the upcoming semester. So in a lot of ways, I'm here for support, but I also want you all to have the confidence to approach me with any questions and make decisions about your future, which in this case does include course scheduling. And courses that you may or may not be interested in taking, or any specific plans that you have in mind in terms of your future career goals, right? And then meeting with your academic advisor, bringing all these items to the meeting, right? So we want to have something to work with. And so we only hope that when you meet with an academic advisor, you come in prepared with these questions and with the research that you've already done so that we could better support you. Thank you. So in terms of how we're here to support, again, degree planning, course selection, understanding policies. And again, for every student, there are some special circumstances that could vary, but just know that you could always ask a question. If we don't know something, we could always refer you to the appropriate resources within our campus. Next slide. Thank you. So in the beginning, I briefly explained the advising general website, right, that lists every school. However, more specifically, SHA also has an advising website. Within our advising website, you're going to be able to find where we're located, what our walk-in hours look like, important dates related to school deadlines or policies, right? And then you could also see any major, minor, and GE requirements too. Generally speaking, our SHA advising office is located in COB1. We do have walk-in hours available 4 to 5 times a week. And this could vary depending on the time of the semester, but generally speaking, there's always going to be an advisor to meet with a student anywhere from 4 to 5 times a week. We're also available through email, and appointments are available during our non-peak times, okay? So you are able to schedule an appointment to meet with an academic advisor via our SHA academic advising website. And this is available during non-busy times, just because when it's busy times, we want to make sure we're able to assist as many students as possible. So appointments might be a little bit hard to get around. Next slide. Thank you. A little bit more going into detail about what our walk-in hours look like and what our appointments look like, right? So walk-in hours are generally held at a specific amount of time every week. The days and times are updated on our SHA academic website, generally on Mondays. So you should be able, so if you're interested in meeting with an advisor, you should be able to go on to our SHA academic advising website every Monday and see what the schedule looks like for that specific advisor. So let's say if you're trying to meet with me, you want to go onto the website and see what days I'm available to meet with students via throughout the week. Okay. For summer terms only, our office operates via walk-in basis. So for example, now we do offer walk-in hour services to our students. And again, this is for summer term only. At the beginning of the fall and spring semester, both walk-in hours and appointments are available to students. Moving forward with appointments, appointments are available. Students will just have to go in and schedule the appointment themselves. We do ask that if you are not going to be able to attend the appointment for any specific reasons, we do know that life happens sometimes, that they please notify the advisor whom they had the appointment scheduled with in order for us to make notation that the appointment should be canceled. We do have a policy for a late no-show. After 2 no-shows, you will not be able to schedule an appointment for the remainder of the semester. Okay. Next slide. Thank you. And so the SHA advising walk-in hours slide details a little bit about how that looks like, right? So if we look at it, you're going to go to walk-in hours, and then you're going to see every advisor's walk-in hours listed, right? So for example, if you wanted to meet with Amandeep because I'm not available, you could see that Amandeep may not be available on Monday, but she is available on Tuesday from 2 to 4, right? And then you just want to navigate the page in the sense that helps you understand what advisors are available on what specific days. Next slide. Thank you. In terms of scheduling appointments, the SHA academic advising website is also going to be your go-to, as I mentioned earlier, but instead of walk-in hours, you're going to click on advisor appointments. And generally, you're going to see 3 different options, right? Whether you're there for general advising, whether you're there for registration, or for any other specific reasons that may not be listed here, right? But generally speaking, you should be able to schedule an appointment with an advisor if times are available. And if I didn't mention this earlier, we do also offer virtual walk-ins and virtual appointments as well. Next slide. In terms of communication, email tends to be the most popular way of communication that exists between a student and their advisor. When emailing your advisor, please be sure that you always include your student, your UC Merced ID number, just because that's going to be generally the first question we ask. Your UC Merced ID number allows us to see your audit. It allows us to see any record related to you as a student. So if you are emailing an advisor, just please be sure to include your first name, last name, and your ID number. We are a small unit. As you all saw, we are a group of 5 and we are the biggest school. So during our busiest times in the semester, we do tend to increase in operations. And because of that, our email response time may also increase. Generally speaking, 7 to 10 business days is the time where you will get a response from an academic advisor. And again, this is only to help support with the high busy peak times during the semester, which generally tend to be around registration time. Okay. In order to protect your privacy as a student, we will be using your UC Merced email to communicate to you all. So we will not be answering any communication related to Yahoo's, Gmails. Your UC Merced will be essentially where we send all important communication. So you just want to make sure you get in the habit of checking your UC Merced email account. Generally, what I tell students is check it at least once every morning, once every night before bed, right? To make sure that you are not missing any important information that goes through that email. Next slide, please. And that concludes our presentation. I hope that was helpful in many ways. And like I said, I did want to leave some time for you to ask any questions if you have any. And I think we have 15 minutes. So I will sit around. If you have any questions, please be sure to ask via the chat box.
Carolyn, I do have a question that was asked. Is there going to be a place to download the PowerPoint?
So so we actually have the recording of the presentation as well. So I feel like in terms of accessing the PowerPoint, I think it's better off to access the recording because you'll also hear my voice. I know that may not always be the most ideal thing, but you might be able to, in case you miss any information, there will be a recording that's available for students to listen to that will include these slides as well.
And I know in some of the messages that I received, there was concerns about not being able to access the embedded links in the website or the PowerPoint. The presentation, most of the links are listed there for you to be able to see through the recording, but also when you do come to meet with our office, we're more than happy to walk you through some of those links and give you access to it and let you know how to access those different sites.
Thank you for adding that, Amandeep.
Awesome. And then another question that I saw was when you were going through the portion about my degree path, I think it was because it was just showing public health, but that is your my degree path is specific to you and will show your major. It's not just for like public health. Whatever your major is, it would be integrated towards your major and encompass the coursework that you've completed and are working on.
Exactly. So the presentation itself was just an example, right, as how essentially it will look like. But it's what Amandeep mentioned is that, yes, if you're a psychology student, it should show psychology as your major. If you are an econ student, it will show econ as your major. It's not necessarily just for public health.
Okay, and then another question you kind of already addressed, but maybe just again, does the SHA advising team have availability over summer?
We do have availability over summer. We do operate via walk-ins only during the summer, but we're also open for email communications as well. And so if a student wants to email me, they can. Maybe Amandeep, if you could place my email in the chat box for students to have access to. You're more than happy to email me, but we do also offer walk-in hour availability. And we could also maybe pop in that SHA Academic Advising website for students to maybe tab on their computer for future resource.
Okay, and another question, are we able to submit a minor change form for a school outside of our major? Such as an
Yes.
MBE major in SHA, but a minor in the college or School of Natural Sciences.
So yes, so you could do that. So just because your major is within SHA doesn't necessarily mean you have to minor with a minor in SHA, right? We do have students who major in psych, but then pursue another minor elsewhere. In terms of the requirements, it could be different per school. So you would just have to check in with an academic advisor from that specific school. But you are allowed to pursue a minor that's not within the School of Social Sciences, even though your major is.
Is there an orientation fee waiver?
I don't know if the Students First Center, I believe we have Students First Center with us today. I don't know if they're better equipped to answer the question. I believe someone's unmuted.
I will go ahead. I'll go ahead and put in the link for the orientation webpage with their contact information. You're most welcome to
Okay.
contact their office for that question. We don't work for the orientation department, so I don't have like specific information for that, but you're most welcome to ask them about a fee waiver and whether that's possible.
Mhm.
Okay, and Carolyn, next question. How do I request an appointment with a study abroad advisor?
Yeah, so you would essentially have to visit the website. And so maybe that's another link we could pop in the chat box, Amandeep. But essentially, you would just have to follow through with their website and have a method to like a contact us section. So you could just go in and request to meet with a study abroad advisor within the time that best fits your schedule.
Sorry, my computer is running a little slow, but I will be putting all these links in the chat. Just give me a moment.
Yes, we'll put them in there.
Next question. What if we could take more than 16 units due to getting a course for fun or like a physical education purpose? I'm assuming they're talking about taking excess units in a term.
Yes, so good question. So typically speaking, a little bit about taking 12 units, anywhere from 12 to 16 units for a full-time student. Technically, you can enroll in the maximum of 18 units within a fall semester. Anything beyond that will require you submit a petition of excess to our school for approval amount of units. So for example, we have students who sometimes take 20 units a semester, but they have to submit the appropriate form for that. And they would have to, again, submit the appropriate general petition form for that. Just keep in mind that there are certain requirements that students must have prior to submitting the petition for excess units form. It's a GPA requirement. So for anyone who's interested in wanting to know more information about taking excess units, you could always come in and chat with me, and I could definitely walk you through that process a little bit more in depth.
Okay, so when would we be able to double major if we are looking to double major, and if that really is possible at all?
So double majoring is possible. We have students do it all the time. In terms of when is that possible, we typically, general rule of thumb is that we encourage students to do it prior to their senior year of school, right? And so that could, or 90 units. So 90 units generally means you're a senior. We understand that that could look different for transfer students because they do come in with more units. Nonetheless, if double majoring is something that you're interested in, We encourage students to have that conversation with their advisor sooner rather than later, just so that you know what those requirements entail, and so that we could get a better idea as to, if I add a double major, is this going to allow me to still graduate within the time I want to, or does this mean I'm going to have to stay an extra semester or take maybe summer courses? So just speak with your academic advisor if that's something you're interested in, because there is a process following that, which includes an application and the creation of a plan, similar to the one I discussed earlier within the My Degree Paths section. So essentially, you want to meet with your advisor prior to submitting that multiple major application form.
Okay, and I also received a question about orientation and whether there are required Zoom meetings to attend. If so, is this marked as one of them? This is mostly for incoming transfer students. You will still have a required orientation session, from my understanding, Carolyn.
It's my understanding as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will link the orientation page for transfer student orientation. You will find more information there. As Jason had mentioned in the main room, you will be required to sign up for one of those sessions. So please make sure to take a look at this webpage and identify what dates work for you to sign up for orientation.
And I believe the question about the orientation fee was also answered within the chat box too. In reference to being no waiver being available for orientation.
Okay, when do we sign up for classes for the fall? Will we be meeting with someone to help us with this process?
So good question. So following that, you all should have received like a welcome email, generally giving you a little introduction about myself, but also any important dates outlined. In terms of when we will be able to sign up for courses, you will be receiving an email mid-June. So coming up within the following weeks with information with a list of course recommendations. So no, you will not be meeting with someone to essentially enroll in courses. Instead, you will be receiving an email that lists course recommendations that you could look at to then sign up for classes. And so that email is going to have more details in terms of how you sign up for classes and what those course recommendations look like for every one of you. And when recommending these courses, it's going to be aligned with the major that the student is intending to pursue once they begin their journey here at UC Merced. Okay, so just keep that in mind. You're going to be having any major related courses or any electives that we feel fit in based on the requirements you completed in your previous institutions, or at your community college. So email coming up mid-June in terms of when registration happens. That would happen on June 27th. That's when it begins. So just keep a tab on your email, again, morning, night, to make sure you're not missing any important information.
Okay, as a transfer student, are we able to do work study? Where do we apply for that, and when should we apply?
I believe maybe the Students First Center could also help and assist with the question as well. Unfortunately, we don't oversee that process. So so maybe Juan, I believe, is the representative for Students First Center. If they have any information related to that, if they can maybe pop it in the chat box for the student.
If there are any other questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat. We still have a couple more minutes that we're here for you all. I did also put in Carolyn's email into the chat for you all. So if you do have questions, feel free to contact her with those questions, and she we'll definitely respond when she has time.
Yes, so I do see that Amanda placed my email alongside the orientation contact and the study abroad appointment information page resource link within the chat box as well.
And then I do have the question of where the webinar links or recordings will be located. Have we identified that?
I believe we have. Give me 1 second and see if I have any, if I could retrace back to my email communication for that.
Got it. I'll put it in the chat. So it will be most likely uploaded by Monday of next week is what I've been informed. So all of our recorded sessions will be posted on the following link that I will put in the chat.
Perfect. Thank you. Do have 2 more minutes left. I want to be conscious of everyone's time, but I also want to thank you all for joining us today, joining myself, joining Amandeep and Juan Lopez, who's our representative from the Students First Center, and taking some time out of your day to kind of chit chat with us a little bit, or to kind of hear us chit chat. We do hope that this was informational and helpful for you all. If at any point you have any questions, you know where to find us. You have my information. But other than that, I hope you all have a great rest of your day. And if anything comes through, just feel free to let me know. Okay.